Welcome, dear friends, to another journey through the pages of history, where faith meets courage and destiny unfolds in the most unexpected places. Today, we bring to life the incredible story of Queen Esther, a woman whose bravery, beauty, and faith changed the fate of an entire nation. It's a story full of palace intrigue, secret identities, unexpected heroes, and one of the most dramatic turnarounds in biblical history. So sit back, relax, and let's travel back over 2,500 years ago to the heart of the Persian Empire, where this unforgettable tale begins. At the time, Persia was the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Its king Xerxes I, also known as Ahasuerus in the Bible, ruled from India to Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. He had unimaginable wealth, power, and influence, but as we'll soon learn, not all was well in the kingdom. In the third year of his reign, King Xerxes threw a grand feast for all his officials and servants. This wasn't your average dinner party. It lasted 180 days, yes, 6 whole months of food, wine, and royal display. And when that was done, he threw another 7-day feast for everyone in the capital city of Susa. At the climax of this celebration, Xerxes, probably drunk with wine and pride, made a bold request. He summoned his wife, Queen Vashti, to appear before him and his guests, wearing her royal crown. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us exactly what his intentions were, but most scholars agree it was likely meant to flaunt her beauty before a crowd of intoxicated men. Queen Vashti, full of dignity, refused. This act of defiance shocked the court. The king, embarrassed and enraged, banished Vashti from his presence and stripped her of her crown. And just like that, the queen was no more. But this decision set off a chain of events that would open the door for a new queen, one handpicked by God for a purpose far greater than anyone could imagine. After some time passed and Xerxes' anger cooled, he began to miss Queen Vashti. His advisors proposed an idea: hold a royal beauty pageant, bring in the most beautiful young women from every corner of the empire, and let the king choose a new queen. And so, the search began. Among the many young women brought to the palace was a young Jewish girl named Hadassah, though you probably know her better by her Persian name, Esther. Esther was an orphan, raised by her older cousin Mordecai, a devout Jew living in exile in Susa. Though she was a foreigner in a foreign land, Esther was incredibly beautiful, kind, and wise beyond her years. When she was taken into the palace, Mordecai gave her one critical piece of advice: don't reveal your Jewish identity. In those days, Jews were outsiders, treated with suspicion and often looked down upon. Esther obeyed, keeping her true heritage a secret. For a whole year, she underwent beauty treatments, oils, perfumes, and palace training, until finally it was her turn to appear before the king. And when she did, King Xerxes was captivated. Out of all the women in the empire, he placed the royal crown on Esther's head and made her queen. But this was just the beginning. Not long after Esther became queen, her cousin Mordecai uncovered a dangerous plot. 2 palace guards were planning to assassinate the king. Mordecai told Esther, and she informed Xerxes in Mordecai's name. The plot was investigated, found to be true, and the conspirators were executed. Mordecai's loyalty was recorded in the royal chronicles, but no reward came. Not yet. Meanwhile, a new figure entered the scene, Haman the Agagite. He was promoted to the highest position in the king's court, second only to Xerxes himself. And Haman had one demand: everyone must bow before him. But Mordecai refused. Why? Because he was a Jew, and Jews bow only to God, not to man. This enraged Haman, but instead of just targeting Mordecai, he set his sights on something far more sinister. He decided to destroy all the Jews in the empire. Haman went to the king and painted a picture of the Jews as a rebellious people with different laws, dangerous to the peace of the kingdom. He even offered to pay 10,000 talents of silver into the royal treasury to fund their extermination. King Xerxes, trusting Haman, agreed. A royal decree was sent out to every province in the empire, stating that on a certain day, all Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be killed. Panic spread like wildfire. When Mordecai heard the news, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and wept bitterly in the city. Esther, safe inside the palace, heard about his grief and sent a servant to ask what was wrong. Mordecai sent back a message explaining the decree and urging her to go to the king and beg for mercy. But Esther was terrified. In Persia, no one could approach the king without being summoned, not even the queen. To do so could mean death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. And it had been 30 days since Xerxes last called for her. Mordecai's reply was bold and unforgettable. He said, "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Esther was shaken, but her courage rose. She sent a message back to Mordecai. "Go, gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will do the same. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther dressed in her royal robes and approached the king's court. The tension was thick. Her life hung in the balance. But when the king saw her, he was pleased. He extended the golden scepter. "What is your request, Queen Esther? Even up to half the kingdom, it'll be given you." But Esther didn't reveal her hand just yet. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. At the banquet, the king again asked what she desired. Esther simply invited them to another banquet the following day. Haman left the banquet full of pride, but that pride quickly turned to rage when he saw Mordecai still refusing to bow. He built a 75-foot-high gallows in his backyard and planned to ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai the next day. But that night, the king couldn't sleep. Xerxes asked for the royal chronicles to be read to him. Perhaps a bedtime story would help. As fate or divine providence would have it, the story of Mordecai saving the king was read aloud. The king stopped the reader. "What reward was given to this man?" "Nothing," came the reply. At that very moment, Haman walked into the court to ask for Mordecai's execution. But before he could speak, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman, thinking it was himself, laid out a grand plan: royal robes, a parade, public honor. "Excellent," said the king. "Go at once, do all this, for Mordecai the Jew." Humiliated, Haman obeyed. That evening, at Esther's second banquet, the king once again asked for her request. With boldness and grace, Esther finally spoke. If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, spare my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king was shocked. Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing? Esther pointed across the table. The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman. The room went silent. The king, furious, stormed out into the palace garden. Haman, realizing his life was over, begged Esther for mercy, falling onto her couch in desperation. The king returned to see Haman falling on the queen and interpreted it as an assault. And just like that, Haman was sentenced to death on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. But Esther's work wasn't done yet. The decree to kill the Jews was still in effect, and in Persian law, once a royal edict was issued, it couldn't be revoked. So Esther and Mordecai proposed a new decree that the Jews be allowed to defend themselves against any attackers. The king agreed. Messengers were sent out across the empire with the good news. When the day of reckoning came, the Jews fought back and won. Mordecai was elevated to Haman's former position, and a new celebration was born. Purim, a day to remember how God delivered his people through the courage of a faithful queen. Esther's story isn't just ancient history. It's a powerful reminder that God can use anyone, no matter how unlikely, for a divine purpose. She was a young, orphan girl in a foreign land, but God raised her up to become a queen and a deliverer of his people. So when life feels uncertain, when your voice feels small, remember this: you too were born for such a time as this. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if Esther's story inspired you today. More biblical stories are coming soon on this channel. Stay blessed.